Welcome to episode 368 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. Joining me in a moment is Mario Treinen. Mario is Director Post Courrier and Logistics at Post Luxembourg, and he's the CEO of Inflow. We're going to be talking about the Post's new venture into B2B parcels. Joining me on the line is Mario Treinen. Mario is Director, Post Courrier and Logistics and CEO of Inflow. This is all under the Post Luxembourg umbrella, shall we say. Mario, we're going to be talking about B2B today, but before we get stuck into that and you're going to explain the Inflow business and all of this, can you just give us a quick overview of the current situation with Post Luxembourg's overall business, whether it's letters and parcels and so on, please?
Yeah, so I think maybe just go very, very long time back. So 1842, Post Luxembourg was created. And since then, we have been the historic postal provider in Luxembourg. And mainly the last 20 years, as many of the posts, we saw a lot of changes, right? Letters going down. So Luxembourg in that trend isn't that much different than a lot of other countries. We might have been a little less digitalized, or still we had a lot of post historically. So roughly to say we have had 100 million letters for around about 600,000 inhabitants, so which is not little, but compared to what we had 10 years ago, it's like half, right? So that's the same trend we're seeing. We're seeing 8-ish% reductions. Once we have elections, it's going a little higher. Once we have some special events, we might have a year with a little bit more, but we have a year-over-year trend of a reduction somewhere in between 6 and 7%. So that's clear. On the other hand, we also have been going into the e-commerce pretty strongly, mainly the B2C side, where we are now at roughly 8.4 million parcels, growing 16% last year. So we have been growing significantly. Of course, COVID time made a big jump on that, right? Where the people noticed that it's important to have a reliable B2C delivery network. Since then, we had been a little struggling 2021, 22, and now we are growing back again, which is actually very good news. And that's also where our B2B story kind of started, right?
So tell us a bit about this B2B opportunity, I suppose, the B2B parcels opportunity for Post Luxembourg. How did it all start?
Basically, it came out of a reflection saying, well, once you have 50-60% of the B2C market in Luxembourg, how do you grow, right? I mean, you can organically grow with the players on the e-commerce, which is certainly a good thing. But then we also said, well, we have now very nice net promoter scores. We invested a lot of time and effort on getting high quality experience for the end customer, yielding also pretty good quality numbers, but also pretty a very good brand recognition here in Luxembourg. And basically we said, well, let's maybe have that kind of high-end experience on the B2C side, also let it benefit to the economy on the B2B side. And that's where we actually came to that reflection, say, let's extend the network to the B2B customers and really let them grow the same point together with us.
So tell us about the strategy then. I should ask first of all, I think that the brand is Inflow. So tell us about the strategy behind Inflow.
Yeah, so Inflow basically is built on a subsidiary. So we had a subsidiary called Michel Greco, right, which is basically called after the name of the guy who invented that company, who used to be like 20 years ago a kind of competitor to Post, because he was at that time thinking that there might be some added value tasks around the postal operator which might be done, and a little bit more flexible, not the kind of state-owned company which is not very flexible. And basically he did set up this very well. And long time before I joined Post, some of the leaders said, okay, well, let's combine the effort. And with subsequent time, we actually bought over 100% of this company, which is still in the DNA of Inflow, and now growing into much more than doing just the express delivery type of activity, which used to be the core of Michel Greco. We said, let's really take this DNA about the B2B focus being a little bit more B2B customer oriented and make it a concept which then basically gives transport services, express delivery, which still is needed, also logistic services, and a full-fledged portfolio of value-added services also.
And I wanted to ask you about that full range of services. You mentioned a few there, but it's more than just that, isn't it? I believe you're doing some reverse logistics and temperature control business as well. Can you just describe the entire range of B2B services that you're offering there?
Yeah. So one is really the distribution and actually transport. So their full range of outbound services, express, pallets, also parcels. We also do temperature controlled transport services. So really a full range of services, mainly focusing on Luxembourg, but also international business, also greater region. Then we also have more logistics services. So we own now roughly 20,000 square meters of warehousing space where we have storage, pick, pack, and also shipping services, custom services, which is included. So actually a full range of services related to the warehousing. And then we also do value-added services, which is on-premise for some of the customers. So we also actively working on-premises for some of the biggest customers here in Luxembourg.
You mentioned earlier about giving a B2C level experience to B2B customers, if I've worded that correctly. So how does the B2B business interact or relate to the existing B2C operations? Is it a completely separate business unit? Is it integrated? I mean, how will the two units interact?
Well, Ian, that's actually where the story is getting very interesting, right? So because now we are talking, we still have separate networks. So historically, because it was a separate legal entity, we have been running this in separate networks, which from our strategy is clearly not the way to go. So we want to integrate as much as possible the networks. We are trying to give as many B2C parcels, but also B2B parcels to our postman network. So we are aiming to adjust our systems, and we are almost halfway gone to integrate the same label, the same scanner, the same infrastructure in order to allow to merge the networks where it makes sense. Of course, if you have like big city centers, there's no negative side of having multiple networks, but especially on countryside, we want to take benefit out of our B2C network as much as possible.
So you've still got the obligation, I imagine, to have a delivery network for letters. And that, so are you trying to route, as it stands, you're trying to route the B2C parcels to those letter carriers? And so is there a role for them to carry B2B parcels as well? Have I got that right?
Yes. So basically, of course, if you have like a pallet, which is or 40 parcels on a pallet, this is not something we'll get to a mailman. But you also have on the B2B market, sometimes one or two parcels, which are actually going to very small B2B customers, which are like B2C, right? There's no difference if you have a one-man company who sometimes sends parcels or receives parcels. It's actually a B2C de facto on a delivery network. And that's what it actually makes interesting, that our people actually don't even know if it's a B2C or B2B parcel. Maybe the delivery, this type of scanning, the signature will differ a little bit, but we try to standardize it as much as possible and take benefit out of the B2C network and the mailman network to really merge the different flows.
And that's a really important point about getting the procedures at the doorstep so similar that it doesn't matter to the delivery operator, whether they're an employee or a contractor. They're just scanning a not just scanning a barcode. You all know what I mean. It's not that there's a special procedure that differentiates B2B to B2C necessarily, that they're ultimately delivering a parcel and you want to give the customer the same level of customer experience.
Yeah, right, Ian. But that's sometimes we have a lot of discussions with some of the B2B customers who want some specifics. And we sometimes go back and say, do you really need that? What's what you need, right? At the end, you want to be sure the parcel arrived and you want to have a proof of delivery. But very specifically, some of the customers want specific type of processes, which of course in the B2C network is very complicated to make, right? So that's why we are now trying to gently push the standard and make sure that we are actually raising the standard where it's needed, but maybe also trying to educate or adapt the customer to say, hey, our standard is good enough and it's actually yielding good performance, even though the process might change a little bit. So that's a very interesting discussion we'll have to have. But from my perspective, if you want to have an efficient network, you need to combine B2C and B2B in one network.
And you mentioned earlier about not just being limited to Luxembourg, but looking outside of Luxembourg's borders. So is there a cross-border B2B opportunity here?
Yes, for sure there is, right? We have a pretty big cargo airport. I mean, we also have a pretty big cargo airline in Luxembourg. So they're certainly coming inbound from other regions, which we certainly had in the past, a very big postal cross-border business, which a little bit disappeared, or at least goes down a little bit. So we're trying to still stay in the loop there and make sure that we have a strong network going to any European country with one day. So we have a network of trucks which join any country in Europe every day. That's very important. And we try also to make Luxembourgish e-commerce companies profit from this. Of course, we don't have a booming e-commerce market, but it's something which at least is important to have. And also their partnerships with a lot of postal operators still work pretty well, right? So we see that some postal operators in some countries actually go a similar direction we have been going. So there is still a future for postal networks. Of course, it needs to go along with high quality. That's at least our point. So that's what we try to set up on a B2B cross-border business as well.
When you're talking about quality, does that then impact on how you choose your partners when you're doing cross-border work? If you don't have your own fleet of trucks, it's going to say, Germany or to France or wherever. If you're partnering with other contractors or with other companies, is that quality part of the discussion to try and make sure that you've got a level of quality that suits your standards?
Yes, for sure. I think, of course, quality at a decent price, but it's certainly something which we value highly, because from our perspective, also given our cost structure we have as a post, going on the very low end margin is very tough, right? So that's something which we try at least to find the right compromise. And quality is also about speed, right? I mean, the people sending a parcel out don't necessarily need it that speedy, but they want to be reliable. So if we tell it's 2 days, it's 2 days. Maybe it's more important than now getting it done in hours and then miss it or fail. So that's something which we certainly want to be on a price quality level, the reliable partner, right? So that's not going on high-end quality for whatever price, but certainly find the right compromise is our strategy there.
And that seems to be a sort of growing theme in delivery and logistics at the moment, isn't it? The moving away from get it as fast as possible at all costs to let's be reliable and not hugely expensive, I suppose, with all the cost of living pressures that we're experiencing in so many parts of the world. But before I start, editorializing about cost of living and things like that, maybe we should move on. You earlier mentioned about value-added services for the B2B business. So can you share some of the value-added services that Inflow will be offering or is offering? So it's now launched, isn't it? It is offering B2B customers.
Yes. So as mentioned, we are either doing on-premise warehousing, pick, pack. So we have a few people who are doing activities which are linked to logistics or logistics activities in the company on-premise itself. We are also, through Inflow, managing multiple mail rooms for Luxembourg banks or institutions. So basically, a lot of these companies are struggling to find people who do the job. Maybe very often they don't have the ease and the processes to set this up. So that's something which we certainly go into the intra-logistics of the companies and try to bring our expertise, which very often is also important, that if you have any people who don't show up in the morning, with our pool, we can bring up immediately a relief. And that's actually a very, it seems easy, but that's something which is a very helpful topic for our customers, which just want to get the job done. And from our side is certainly a high-end job. On their side, it's very often something which has to be done, but maybe they don't see this as a core of their activity, which of course it isn't. But that's something which we see a pretty nice growth potential on our side, to be sure that we help the customers to get just the stuff moved across their company.
Mario, the new service, Inflow, or the brand Inflow, was launched at the end of February. So I can imagine it's all very exciting times at the moment. You're onboarding new clients or just promoting the network. What's happening right now?
Yeah, right now it's really incredible. It's also, to be fully honest, from my perspective, the first time I launched a brand, and we of course took benefit of our communications team, which in Post is doing a pretty good job in branding. So and we launched. We need to think about the new processes. Of course, stuff you already do, but like billing, the accounting. How do you get the customer onboarded? What is the customer going to say? The sales conditions, the terms of sales, all the stuff, nitty-gritty details which have to be done. So we have now been dealing with all this over the last 2-3 months, and now we are really ready to go into the market and try to propose our services. And to be fully honest, the first 2 weeks already, we have been signing almost 50 new contracts. People were waiting for us to come up with this new offer. So that's certainly for us a very positive signal we are getting, that the market is well perceiving our proposal to help the B2 businesses to get higher end quality.
And if anyone listening to the podcast wants to find out more about Inflow, what's the web address that people can look up?
It's inflow.lu, and there you will find all the different contact possibilities to contact us.
I'll put a link to that on the postalhub.com episode page as well, so you can visit the postalhub.com and click through to the Inflow website if you haven't been able to jot that down now. Mario Treinen, Director, Post Courrier and Logistics at Post Luxembourg and the CEO of Inflow, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Hey, thanks, Ian. Thanks for having me.
That's all for this episode of the Postal Hub podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast in your favourite podcast platform, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, any of those good ones. Subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating, lovely rating, a lovely review, please, using, all kinds of poetic language for how this podcast has improved your life. That'd be nice. You can follow me on LinkedIn. Just search for Ian Kerr, and you'll see a photo of me. It's quite old, but hey, I still more or less look like that. I mean, you'd sort of recognise me if you bumped into me in the street and all you'd ever seen of me was my LinkedIn photo. Probably. Anyway, follow me on LinkedIn. What else? You can subscribe to my email newsletters. I have 2 newsletters that might interest you. 3, really. One relates to post offices. So if you're a retail post office person, you can subscribe to that one. I've got the Daily Delivery Digest, which is a daily newsletter with all the headlines from around the delivery world, and my regular weekly newsletter, which just tells you that there's a new episode of the podcast out. If you want to email me about anything at all, my email address is... I didn't tell you where to find the newsletters. It's on thepostalhub.com. And if you want to email me, my email address is ian@thepostalhub.com. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.